Welcome to Midnight Confessions. A farewell you'll never forget. So those were tonight's Midnight Confessions. Each one is darker than the last. Like whispers crawling out of a locked room deep in your subconscious. If you're still here, if your lights are still on, if your heart is still thudding in your chest, then congratulations, you made it to the end. Not everyone does. These chilling tales were sent in by brave souls just like you. Ordinary people, who saw something they were never meant to see. Heard footsteps when no one was home. Or woke up with bruises from fingers that weren't theirs. Which story twisted your gut the most? The third one? Yeah, same here. There's something about shadows. That watch back keeps me checking over my shoulder. Hit that subscribe button before something else hits you first. Until next time. Sleep tight. If you still can. Hey guys, welcome to Midnight Confessions, where I share real horror stories that'll make you question what's out there. Every story you hear on this channel is written by me, based on true events I have experienced or come across. No AI junk, no recycled creepypasta. Just raw, unsettling stories tell the way they happened. Let's start with the story. I was not always a believer, but I have always been wary. Raised in a family that did not push religion, but we clung to our superstitions like they were the only thing keeping us safe. Practices include never letting a mirror face the door and hanging crystals and brooms to ward off bad energy. I have grown up with these rituals, and while my teenage mind has shifted towards logic, there's something about them that still lingers like an invisible thread trying to tell me something I cannot quite explain. We live on nearly 11 acres of land, most of it pasture, so isolated you could scream and only the wind would answer. The front pasture's got a pond, but it's wide open, barren almost. It's peaceful, nearly too quiet. Behind the house, the area is fenced in and safe, but further back, it turns into a raw, untamed wilderness. The property ends where the tree line begins, and there's this trail that stretches out into the woods, hundreds of yards away, hidden beneath thick trees. It's quiet out there, the kind of calm that makes your skin prickle. Only a few dog walkers, runners, or the occasional curious soul pass through. But even then, not often. It's not a well-traveled path. I board my horse just a short walk away, maybe 6 or 7 minutes on foot. The driveway crosses over that same trail, and I always take the same route, walking back toward my house into the woods, and then up the driveway to the barn. And from the barn, you can just hear our animals, the goats, chickens, turkeys, and the dogs barking in the distance, but it's faint, like they're calling out from a dream. It happened this morning, right after the night. I had to head to the barn early, before the sun had fully risen, to get my horse's hooves trimmed. It was around 8:50 when I left the house, and by 9 o'clock, I was at the barn. It was broad daylight, the kind of morning you'd think nothing could go wrong. But as I was walking back towards my house, right around the edge of my neighbor's property, a strange sound stopped me dead in my tracks. It was barking, unmistakably familiar. It sounded exactly like my dog, Jack. But here's the thing. I know every dog around here, their barks, their tones. None of them sounds like Jack, especially not in the woods. This was not right. The woods are supposed to be quiet, but this bark, it was too sharp, too real. And it came from deep within the trees, where no one should have been. Jack's a Belgian sheepdog, bred for herding, with a bark that could shake the ground. He has got that deep guttural voice that demands respect, and I have always trusted him. So when I heard a bark that sounded just like his, but wrong, I froze. Jack's never been one to stray, especially from the fence. He always respected it as if it were his invisible boundary. I panicked, thinking maybe he had gotten out, perhaps he was attacking something out there, some poor, defenseless animal. I rushed to call my mom, my hands shaking as the phone rang. But it went straight to voicemail. I couldn't wait. I had to know. I took a few steps toward the woods, each one heavier than the last. And that's when it hit me, this overwhelming dread, like the air around me thickened, the ground felt unstable under my feet. It was the kind of fear that claws at your chest, the kind that whispers, "Get out or you won't make it out." I've had gut feelings before, but nothing like this. This was primal. This was real. Without a second thought, I turned and bolted back to the gate. But as I made my way toward the safety of the house, I saw him. Jack. Standing there, not looking at me, his eyes locked deep into the woods, not even acknowledging my presence. He didn't bark, didn't move, just stood there like some silent sentinel. And that's when I heard it again, his bark. But it wasn't from the yard, it was from deep within the woods behind me. I stood there paralyzed. My dog, staring at the trees, was silent as a ghost, while I heard him barking from somewhere else. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I won't lie, my heart raced like I was about to be hunted. I sprinted inside, my mind whirling. As soon as I got inside, I told my mom everything about the barking, the cold terror that seized me when I stepped closer to the woods. She listened closely, and then in the most matter-of-fact tone, she shared something that made my blood run cold. My mom and dad both work from home, but on this particular day, my mom swore she heard Jack barking outside. She was concerned, so she asked my dad to check on the dogs, thinking maybe Jack was scaring the goats again. He walked upstairs from the basement and went to the kitchen, only to find all 4 dogs lying there, peacefully asleep on the floor, including Jack. Later that day, I went to the barn as I often do. While I was getting my horse ready, I heard the unmistakable sound of Jack barking again. But this time, it came from the woods. It sent a chill crawling down my spine. I don't know what to make of it. I keep trying to convince myself of a bizarre talent. But even that doesn't sit right. Why, in a town like this, where 9 out of 10 people own a gun, would there be something that sounds so much like Jack, barking deep in the woods, where no one should be? I can't explain it. But whatever it is, it's not natural. And trust me, this is just the beginning. I've got more stories that I'll send in once I get them written down. But this one is the one that haunts me the most. I was sitting down the other day thinking about it all, and I just had to write this down. When I was 19, I moved into a trade school program and lived on campus. I had 3 roommates in the building, but today, I'm only going to talk about one, Jenny. Jenny was, well, she was an interesting one. Unlike me, she wasn't all that invested in the program, so she'd sneak off to smoke or hang out with the guys on campus. But honestly, I didn't mind. She was goofy, a little rough around the edges, kind of ratchet if you will, but charmingly, you know? I've got a lot of good memories with her, even if they're a little strange in hindsight. Above each of our beds, we had cork boards we could decorate if it weren't too much. The moment I moved into that room, I noticed Jenny's board. It was covered completely. Curiosity got better of me, so I went over to check it out. Amongst all the photos and little trinkets, there was one thing that caught my eye, a charm for Santa Muerte. Now, I'm from a predominantly Hispanic area, so I'd heard of her before she became a well-known deity. Most people around here are either Catholic or Christian, but Santa Muerte, she's different. Some say working with her can bring protection, but others say it's dangerous, something you should stay away from. I'd only ever seen people involved with her who weren't exactly on the right track in life, but that was just my experience. At first, I didn't think much of it. To each of their own, right? I wasn't about to judge what people believe. If she wasn't doing anything wrong with it, what harm was there? But things got strange. The more I spent time with Jenny, the more I realized there was something off about her. She wasn't just practicing these beliefs. There was something deeper, something darker, that was following her around. The air in our room began to feel heavy, like something was watching us when we weren't looking. One night, I was lying in bed trying to sleep, and I swear I heard faint whispers. Not from outside, but from inside the room. Soft, unsettling murmurs, like someone was speaking in a language I couldn't quite place. When I opened my eyes, Jenny was sitting up in her bed, staring at that Santa Muerte charm like it was pulling her in. I asked her about it one night, trying to be casual, but my voice cracked, the tension in the room thick. She looked at me, eyes wide, almost too wide, and said, "People don't always understand the protection she gives. But once you ask, you never get to walk away." Her smile. It was too sharp. Too unsettling. I couldn't sleep after that. Something about her and that charm made me feel like we were no longer alone in that room. And from that night on, things just kept getting weirder, one small thing after another. I should have left then, but I didn't. Not yet. Jenny never really opened up to me much about her personal life, but one night, she pulled me aside and finally started sharing. It wasn't anything I could repeat, but she eventually told me about this girl down the hall she had her eye on. She wanted this girl to move into our dorm, to take the empty bed left by someone who'd graduated. I tried to warn her, telling her it wasn't a great idea to have someone move in just because she had a crush on them. What if things didn't work out? What if the girl didn't feel the same way? It would make everything so awkward. But Jenny? She was set on it. When she wanted someone, there was no changing her mind. She was relentless. Let me give you a better picture of how our room was set up so you can understand what happened next. There were 4 beds, arranged like this, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. I was on the bottom left bed, and Jenny's bed was at the far end on the top right next to the wall with 3 big windows that looked out over the campus. Around that time, I started having some disturbing nightmares. I've always had bad dreams, but these were different. It was the same dream again. I'd wake up in the dead of night paralyzed, unable to move. The room would be dark, and I would glance toward Jenny's side of the room toward the windows, and that's when I'd see her. A woman, shrouded in black feathers, is standing outside the second-story window. Her face was hidden in shadows, but I could see her eyes glinting in the olive light, staring straight at me. And then she would raise a long bony finger and point directly at Jenny. A slow, creepy smile would spread across her face as if she knew something I didn't. It happened just a few times, but every time I woke up, I was paralyzed with fear, eyes wide open, and I'd find myself staring straight at the window where she had been. It felt real, like she was still out there. And every time, the air in the room felt heavier, like something was pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. The silence was thick, like the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. My roommates and I couldn't catch a break. We kept getting sick, over and over again. At first, I chalked it up to the stress of being in a new place. A place where I had no control over my environment, no set routine, and probably 1,000 other people, each one carrying their germs and viruses. But then the dreams started getting to me. They were so vivid, so unsettling, that I had to look up what I was seeing. And when I did, my blood ran cold. The woman in my dreams, she looked disturbingly like La Llorona, or at least what I thought she might be. La Llorona is a terrifying figure in Mexican folklore, a ghostly woman who roams the earth, taking lost souls. I couldn't shake the thought that she was somehow connected to me. Every time I saw her, it felt like I was being pulled into something dark, like I was being noticed by something not of this world. I hadn't done anything to call it upon myself, so why was it coming for me? I kept it to myself at first. I didn't want to seem crazy or paranoid. But after a few weeks of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to casually ask Jenny if she was involved in anything spiritual. I tried to bring it up gently, mentioning how the room just started feeling wrong. The tension in the air was unbearable. I mentioned that in my dreams, there was a terrifying owl woman, and that she wanted her soul. I tried to laugh it off, but it didn't make it any less real. Then Jenny told me something that made my blood run colder than ever. She confessed that she'd been making an offering to Santa Muerte, asking for help to get the girl she liked to move into our room. She wanted to be close to her, to force a bond between them. The moment she said it, something inside me snapped. I could feel the wrongness of what she was doing. I told her about the dreams and the awful feeling that had been growing in me ever since. Her face went pale, and I could see the fear in her eyes.
But she didn't stop. She seemed almost more determined. I begged her to stop.
Forcing someone to love you, using magic, it's never okay. I don't care what anyone believes, that kind of thing is dangerous. I started to feel like I was watching the craft play out right in front of me, like everything was spiraling into something dark and uncontrollable. And then, a week later, the bed that Jenny had been saving for the girl was suddenly filled. A new girl had moved in, and I couldn't help but feel like it was some kind of cosmic justice. The bed had been empty for months, waiting for something, but it was finally occupied. And when it happened, I swear the room felt different. The air didn't feel as heavy, but the darkness still lingered, just barely. So, if that girl was going to move in, it should have happened by then. But instead, things started spiraling in a way I couldn't explain. Shortly after that, Jenny got into a huge fight that spread like wildfire, causing drama with almost all her friends. It was messy, and though it could have just been a coincidence, things started to feel off. The girl Jenny liked. She started completely ignoring her, and Jenny was devastated, not understanding why she was receiving a cold shoulder. Jenny begged me to talk to her, to figure out what had changed. So, I did. When I approached the girl, she was polite, but the moment I mentioned Jenny's name, her face twisted with utter disgust. I couldn't believe it. It was like something snapped inside her at the mere thought of Jenny. The disgust was so palpable, so raw, that I couldn't ignore it. I figured maybe there was more to this I didn't understand, and told Jenny just to let it go. She was hurt, but I honestly thought she'd move on.
People do, right?
But then everything took a dark turn. The following week, while I was in class, I got a text from my other roommate saying Jenny got busted. She had weed stashed in her locker. Now, this was no surprise, she'd been doing it the whole time we'd been there, and somehow, she'd never gotten caught, not even with the security cameras or smoking outside in plain sight. But this time, they caught her red-handed. She got arrested and kicked out of the program. It could have just been a series of unlucky bad decisions. But with everything going on, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was something more. I couldn't ignore the thought that her obsession with forcing something unnatural, with trying to manipulate things she didn't fully understand, had something to do with it. From what I know about Santa Muerte, she doesn't take kindly to selfish requests, especially ones that harm others. It's disrespectful, and the consequences can be severe. I always felt like what happened to Jenny was some kind of warning, a real-life example of what happens when you mess with forces you don't fully understand. It reminds me of that movie, The Craft. There's that girl, right? She practices witchcraft to make a guy fall in love with her, believing she can control the outcome. But because her intentions were selfish, everything started to crumble around her.
Her life falls apart.
It's the same with any spiritual practice. When your intentions are greedy and you try to control things that shouldn't be controlled well, you're asking for disaster. Listen, that fake dog bark still gives me chills, and Jenny learned the hard way that some things shouldn't be messed with. I've got way scarier stories coming your way, stuff that'll keep you up all night. Hit subscribe and ring that bell because the next day I'm telling you about something that came home with me, and it won't leave.